Before you jump into creating timelines, scheduling meetings, or assigning tasks, there is one document that sets the tone for the entire project. That is the project charter. In this video, you're going to understand why you need a project charter, how you're supposed to create one, and the things you're supposed to include in your project charter. Not just that, there are some common mistakes that people do when creating a project charter. We are going to highlight them here so you don't fall a victim of that. As you know, this is FOPM, where we break down the messy world of project management into something you can actually use. My name is Valerie, and if you're figuring out things the way I am, then you're already ahead of the game. So let's get a clear explanation of what a project charter is. A project charter is a document that gives you the official permit to start your project. It authorizes your project, it defines the objectives of your project, defines the scope, defines the stakeholders involved in your project. Think of a project charter as the birth certificate of your project. Without it, your project only exists in your head. There is no clear definition, there is no recognition. It will be very challenging for you to refill someone about your project objective. It is in the project charter where you can find this information. Once the project charter has been signed, it gives the project manager the official go-ahead to start that project. There are some key components that you have to consider in your project charter. We have the project purpose. Why does the project exist? What is the problem the project is solving? We have the project objective. You need to have a measurable goal. We have the project scope. Now, when we talk about the scope, we have things that exist within the scope and out of the scope. So you need to talk about the project scope in your project charter. We have the project budget and timeline. The project budget and timeline is going to enhance the way you do your planning, because when you have an estimate of how long your project is going to take and the amount it costs for the entire project, it enables you to do your planning well. We have also the stakeholders. Who are the people involved in this project? Who are the people who are going to make sure that this project comes to reality? When we're talking about stakeholders, remember that we have the end users, we have the team members, we have the project sponsor. All of those people are your project stakeholders. And also we have the assigned project manager, who is going to make sure that this project comes into life, who is going to lead this project. You need to have a very clear and concise project charter, because later on in the project, it is going to save time and it is going to save energy. At this point, I'm sure you're beginning to see the importance of a project charter. It gives that alignment from the very beginning of the project. Everyone is clear about their responsibilities. It gives the project manager that permit, right, the authority to start allocating resources, to start assigning tasks, scheduling meetings, to make sure that the project comes to life. There is no misunderstanding. Everyone knows where they belong and where they stand. You have that hierarchy from top to bottom. You can identify this through the project charter. It sets that tone. It builds that foundation for your project. Now see, these are the steps you can use to create your own project charter. Step 1, you need to define your project purpose. What are we doing in this project? Why are we executing this project? Are we solving a problem? That is the first thing you need to identify. The second thing is your project objective. Your objectives have to be very smart. Smart in the sense that they need to be very specific, they need to be very measurable, they need to be attainable, they need to be relevant, and they need to have a time bound. The third thing is your project scope. When we're talking about the scope, remember, we're talking about the things that are relevant for that project and things that are out of your project. You need to involve them in your project charter for clarity. The fourth thing you want to identify is your stakeholders. Get this myth. Your stakeholders are not the boss. It's not the hierarchy. It's not anything that many people define as stakeholders. Your stakeholders are people involved in that project. Anyone that can have an influence in your project is your stakeholder. The fifth thing is the timeline and the budget. you need to have an understanding of how much is going to cost in this project. A rough estimate is better than none. You need to have a timeline. How long is this project going to take? In that feed point, which is your timeline and your budget, you need to have an understanding of those things. It helps you plan detailedly. It helps you minimize some risks from occurring in your project. And the seat, which is, I consider it very important, because without a leader who can guide you through the project, it is going to be very challenging for you to execute your project without difficulties. Is defining who the project manager is. This is the person who is going to run through all the project. This is the person who is going to manage your emotions, the pressure. You need to know who your project manager is. I hope you can use these steps to create a relevant project charter that is going to enable your team gain success. Despite all of this, there are some common mistakes that people still do in their project charter. The first one is vague objective. Your project charter should not have objectives that are not smart enough for someone to understand. The second thing is incomplete scope. You need to know what is relevant for your project. You need to know what is out of the scope. If not, you are going to spend a lot of time working in something that is out of the scope for your project. The third thing is skipping stakeholders' input. Your stakeholders need to contribute to that project charter. You need to have a roundtable discussion and discuss with people what the project charter should look like, what is mostly relevant for your project charter. And what I consider very important, which is the last, is skipping that sign of your project charter. Your project charter has to be signed. Without that signature, your project charter loses its authority. Your project sponsor needs to sign that project charter. It is important that you review your project charter with your stakeholders, you review your project charter with your team members, create that project charter and review it before starting your project. It is very important and necessary. There are three questions that I get quite a lot when it comes to creating a project charter. The first question is a project charter necessary for small projects? Yes, it is necessary, because even small clarity matters a lot for small projects. The second question is, can I update my project charter? Yes, you can update your project charter as long as you go through the change control system. Make sure you document everything before you update your project charter. And lastly, which is very common, is a project charter the same as a project plan? No, your project charter is different from your project plan. Your project charter gives you that authority to start your project, to manage changes, and to review the objectives of your project. If you have enjoyed this episode, if you have watched up to this moment, I hope you enjoyed it. And if anything I've shared with you today sparked a thought, a feeling, a question, then hit that subscribe button. And my commitment to you, alongside with my team, is very simple: to consistently bring your real, honest, and valuable content that helps you figure out project management one conversation at a time. Thank you for being here.